Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to all of you. It is indeed a privilege for me to be present here today and to deliver this keynote address for this seminar and conference, which will deliberate on the very pertinent subject of underwater domain awareness, or UDA in short. This subject, as Arnav had brought out, is gaining prominence and is deeply impacting, pun is intended here, the way nations and global community perceive the oceans and seas today. As Arnav had also mentioned, at the cost of being repetitive, with nearly 71%, it is especially in the context of today's seminar for me to recall the interesting statement by the famous British fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, when he remarked how inappropriate it is to call this planet Earth when it is quite clearly ocean. To set the tone right at the very beginning of this conference, let me state a few facts which are oft quoted about the importance of oceans. I reiterate and remind this August gathering that 75% of global population lives in little areas. 80% of global merchandise trade by volume, and approximately 99% of the world's data, including internet traffic, passes over or through the oceans. Yet, despite such substantial dependence on the oceans, more than 80% of the underwater world still remains unexplored, unobserved, or unmapped. These facts surely drive home the growing need for a comprehensive understanding and monitoring of the activities and conditions of the underwater domain, which can be both a source for prominent threats as well as a zone of immense opportunities. There has been a growing realization of the threats that are being imposed from the underwater domain, especially in the Indian Ocean region, by certain activities and deeds of our adversaries, and also due to the increasing trends of ambiguous exploitation of this strategic domain. China, for instance, has been regularly deploying its large ocean surveying fleet of approximately 64 active Chinese research and survey vessels for collecting seabed, hydrographic, and oceanographic data. One can easily fathom that these rich research activities are certainly not for peaceful purposes alone. In addition to utilization of the research vessels, Beijing is also deploying autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, and underwater gliders for such other dubious activities. Some of these Chinese origin gliders and AUVs have been recovered in Indonesia and the Philippines, very close to strategically important sea lanes and choke points of Indian Ocean. It is no rocket science to comprehend that such data collection and sampling would be of immense value while planning deployment of underwater assets such as submarines and SSBNs by the PLA Navy when the need arises. Another serious gray zone underwater threat, where attribution will always remain contested, is from the vulnerability of undersea cables and critical infrastructure. This was adequately demonstrated through sabotage activities and damages inflicted on the undersea cables in the Baltic Sea during the ongoing Russia Ukraine conflict. These occurrences have further enhanced the relevance of and the impetus that is being accorded by the Government of India and the Indian Defence Forces to underwater domain awareness. From a national security and defense perspective, UDA augments our capability to detect, counter underwater threats, protect critical maritime infrastructure, communication in an offensive posture, bolster launching of a credible deterrence. As underwater technologies continue to evolve, maintaining complete awareness beneath the sea will become equally important, if not more, when compared with the requirement of maintaining adequate surveillance above the surface of oceans. Indian Navy is therefore vigorously progressing various UAV. I'm sure all these aspects will be debated in great detail during the various panel discussions over the next 2 days, as well as Commander round of applause. I will briefly cover the aspects of threats, challenges, and the military connotations emerging from the underwater domain. Let me now highlight the other side of the coin of UDA, which is all about opportunities and tremendous possibilities. Recognizing the strategic importance of the maritime domain, India has, over the past few decades, articulated maritime roadmap through its enunciated vision of Sagar, which evolved into Mahasagar, partnerships, capacity building, sustainable development, shared responsibilities, and mutual collaboration in the maritime domain. The underwater domain, which holds immense potential and promise, is of particular significance for India, as it offers notable scientific opportunities. Firstly, to advance national interest, and also was an avenue to provide a decisive strategic advantage. We can take a leaf from China's actions of exploring the extreme depths of oceans when in 2020, China's crude submersible Fedoshi descended to the very depth of Challenger Deep in Mariana Trench, the deepest point of Earth. The deep exploratory mission provided China with unique insights of never reported microbial species and valuable understanding on how life forms can exist and adapt to extreme pressure, temperature, and nutrient conditions at these depths. Such knowledge paves way for path-breaking developments and studies in the field of medical research, deep sea exploration, geological mapping, and other applications necessary to harness marine resources. Underwater domain also provides opportunities in the realm of critical minerals and rare earth elements, which are vital for future technologies and strategic industries. As it is now widely known, these are available in plenty on the depths of the oceans in the form of polymetallic nodules. While India has become the first International Seabed Authority member state to hold deep sea exploration conference, over three exploration areas of blocks of more than 90,000 square kilometers in the central Indian Ocean basin and along the Karsdorp Bridge. However, India must keep developing its expertise in this area and remain the ongoing global competition and contestation for extracting these nodules through deep sea mining. In addition to these prospects, UDA is equally important for environmental protection, disaster management, and for vital segments of India's blue economy, such as fisheries, maritime transport, coastal tourism, offshore renewable energy, and underwater infrastructure, to name a few. UDA is not merely a desirable technological capability, it is a national imperative, both from the security and economic perspective, and a prerequisite for expanding our blue economy. So, what must be the way ahead for India to take a lead and leapfrog in the domain of underwater? In my opinion, the guiding mantra for UDA resonates with the concept of JAI, which also stands for Atmanirbharta and innovation. The underwater domain demands a joint and integration along with close collaboration of all stakeholders involved in UDA. It will require a substantial role to be played by the private industry. Atmanirbharta or self-reliance is quintessential for attaining the desired capabilities for underwater domain. And innovation will certainly be the catalyst for embracing new technologies which may very well be for dual use. Building indigenous capability is a strategic necessity in this niche area, as dependence on external sources for such critical technologies is neither desirable nor sustainable. It is my humble opinion that the approach of jointness, Atmanirbharta, and innovation can and will provide the necessary fillip to transform India's maritime vision of underwater domain awareness into an achievable and measurable national capability. Sardar K.M. Panikkar had alluded many decades ago that our vision of maritime security must not merely be coastal, but oceanic and far from the coast itself. Hence, as our nation stands ready for expanding a maritime vision and scope across the seven oceans, we must surely and progressively also look beneath the oceans with a new sense of purpose, which is to understand, secure, protect the underwater domain, and to responsibly utilize its immense potential. It is against this backdrop that today's session assumes greater relevance. With these words, I again extend a very warm welcome to all those present in the hall and participating in the seminar. I am certain that the planned sessions over the next 2 days will be extremely enlightening and insightful. So let's dive deeper together for a better understanding of this fascinating domain and appreciation of its growing significance for India's strategic and maritime needs and future. Let me conclude on the emphatic note of Jalmeva Yasya, Balmeva Tasya, one who controls the sea, and may I add, all beneath it will be all powerful. Shamno Varuna, Jai Hind.